So he doesn't even know what sex and love and relationships are because he's a doll. He goes in the real world. He sees it modeled for him by these men in the real world. He comes back and suddenly, like, everything is sexualized and, like, the women are being objectified and, like, all this stuff because that's what's being modeled. I very much think of, like, teen boys who don't really know what sex looks like. They don't really know what love is, but they can quickly become obsessed with, like, girls and sex, and they're watching porn, and they think that this is what all these things look like, and they want it so bad, even though, like, they don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
It's because they're just mirroring what's being
Of course.
modeled for them.
Yes.
You don't even know what that is. You don't even know if you really want it, but you should want it. Thanks for tuning in. This is Sex Positivity Unfiltered, and we have a bonus episode for you about the Barbie movie. I've seen it twice. You saw it.
Yeah, I only saw it once. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, rookie, only seeing it one time.
Sorry. Shame.
Yeah. No, but we wanted to talk about it and just provide this bonus episode because last time we talked a lot about patriarchy and what sex positivity is and feminism, and I feel like so much of that was embedded in this movie, so I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, I honestly have never heard the words patriarchy as much until I met you. And then we got in, and then I shortly right after recording everything, we went to see the theater, and the amount of times I heard the word patriarchy, I was shocked. I was like, oh shit, Lyndsey would love this movie.
Yeah, they were not shy about it. They were
great.
It was not subtle. They were very direct about it.
I loved it. But yeah. So how do you want to jump in?
Well, I'm just gonna jump in, and I apologizing in advance to everyone listening and to you if I like hijack the conversation because I just have so much that I want to say about this movie. First, I really enjoyed it. I thought the message was really good, and I think it's deeper than maybe a lot of people even realize. So I'm hoping we could just get into that deep dive and make it make sense for what I'm thinking when I think about the movie.
Okay.
But just speaking of patriarchy, kind of like when it started off with talking about the difference between like a patriarchy and a matriarchy, because I guess like Barbie Land, I mean, I'm saying matriarchy, I don't know if that's how they would like label it in the movie, but you know, Barbie Land is run by Barbies, by the women. And something that is so interesting to me is that when it was run by them, by the Barbies, by the women, the men were still respected and they were friends. They just didn't like hold positions of power.
But funny, guys.
Yeah, they were like they were Kens. They were like regular Barbies too in the Barbie world. But when it switched and Ken comes back from like real life back to Barbie Land.
After he learns about patriarchy.
After he learns about patriarchy and like what's modeled before him by the men in the real world. The other Barbies are brainwashed, sexualized. I mean, whenever they're like serving them the beer, they're in kind of like the skimpy outfits.
Yep,
and
the maid outfit.
And they're also being like servants to the men. Like they get rid of their positions as like doctor and president, and they're like, no, I just love serving the men. They're like kind of brainwashed. That's like a big difference, I think, that you would see, you know, patriarchy versus matriarchy, a society that's run by women. I think people, when you think of the two like systems, it's not a complete swap. It's not like matriarchy would be the exact same. It would just be women in power. I don't think it would be the same. No. I think Barbie kind of showed that, right? No,
I completely agree. I mean, don't get me wrong. At first you do feel a little bad for Ken because he's an afterthought to Barbie. I mean, it was almost perfect.
Yeah.
He was created second, and he has no car. He has no house. Mm-hmm. He has no money. He has no job.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have any of that.
I think it's Sasha, like the girl, when her and her mom come back to Barbie Land, and she's like, where does Ken live? She's like, Barbie's like, I don't know, actually. So it is like they're like an afterthought, right?
Yes.
And I thought by the end of the movie, when she apologizes to Ken, like, she says, not every night has to be girls' night. Like, kind of like I didn't have to put you as an afterthought.
Yes.
I thought that was fair. Like,
no, I loved it.
I loved it, right? And then also so funny, you notice he didn't apologize to her for taking over her house and her friends and So it was just, I thought it was interesting that she apologized to him and him not to her.
Yeah, going back to basically you saying how, the world, if it was switched, if it was a matriarchy, we wouldn't. There were no scenes where you saw Ken in a skimpy Speedo, serving them drinks over, along the pool or something like that.
Yeah.
Never happened. They were never sexualized. They were, I don't know. It was just, it's weird thinking of a society in a matriarchal world where men would be second class. Like, I don't think that would happen.
I can't picture it.
No, I can't picture it.
And I think, women, like, let's say we were in that kind of society and women were in power. I think most women, and again, I'm like mentioning feminism here, because feminism isn't anti-man.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? It's not that. They would want to be equal, even if they were the ones that had, like, the most control or in the highest position. So I just thought that contrast was so interesting when you think about who's running Barbie Land and what does that look like.
Oh, yeah.
In the movie.
No, for sure. Don't mean to go on a tangent, but I'll bring something up that, I went through this experience this weekend where I'm in a very male-dominated field is my job. It's very much usually around. Actually, it's very rare in my career. I think maybe there's been 3 women now that I'm going back throughout that I've actually had to that have been a customer or client of mine. It's usually men. And it's weird how when it comes to my job, a lot of times they'll see a big old truck coming out to do some type of really big job that requires a little bit of labor and, harsh environments and things like that. And you just automatically think, if you think in construction worker, technician, you think of a man. Mm-hmm. So it's really weird seeing. And usually I find it as a very nice, good place of pride where I jump out of the truck and it's just, you're expecting this big burly man and out jumps just little me, right? Yeah. But we can do the job. We can do about the same equal amount of work, a man in my field and me. But anyway, it just surprises the other person. However, on the reverse, I think I was telling you this the other day, when it's a man in a mostly female-dominated industry, such as, I'm assuming, therapy, or nursing, or fashion design, or cosmetology, we very, very rarely think, because he's a man, he probably isn't going to do as well as a woman. I mean, I understand that there's some industries, after thinking about it a little bit, gynecology, we kind of feel some type of way with men in gynecology, but I feel like that's the only industry where men are thought of to not be able to do the same job as a woman, whereas it's very opposite.
Because like in therapy, I think I'm kind of like giving the statistic on the fly. I don't have like the exacts, but I remember it's around this amount. I think it's like 70% like female dominated, like as far as therapists go.
That, yeah.
But like male therapists are still very much highly respected.
Yeah.
And so like we don't question if they can do the job in a dominant, female like
dominant female dominated profession. Yeah, we don't question them.
But when it's the other way around, like in STEM, there is that stigma like, she can't really do. And you were I think you told me like there's been clients before that doubt that they would rather have a man there.
Oh yeah, very much so. They look at the job and they're like, okay, we're calling a technician, and they're like, are you sure? Actually, I've even had job offers where I went to go for a delivery position and he looked at me and he's like, oh no. Like,
oh my gosh.
He's like, I don't think you can do that. And I was like, okay. He's like, we'll give you a week try. And I was like, sure, fine. And then a week went by and he hired me. But yeah,
that's wild.
It's happened a couple times. But yeah, it's speaking of the matriarchy versus the patriarchy that you see in the Barbie movie, I didn't see any type of correlation to how the Barbies treated the Kens from how the Kens treated the Barbies. I mean, there was obviously, again, the Ken didn't have very much to him, but he wasn't treated like his opinion mattered less, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I want to mention Alan real quick.
Oh, yes, okay.
So Alan, like I think they say somewhere like there's only one Alan. There's like all the Barbies, all the Kens, there's one Alan.
No multiples of Alan.
And he was like, Alan is a man, but he's not the Kens. But he has like this soft side to him, but he's also not the Barbies. He's just Alan, like the individual. And I think when we're talking about eliminating, male or like toxic masculinity, that's what I was looking for. When we're looking at like eliminating toxic masculinity, I think that's what we look at is just the individual perspective. And actually, I have a quote from Bell Hooks that I want to read real quick that kind of like ties into this. So this quote from Bell Hooks, it says, "To create loving men, we must love males. Loving maleness is different from praising and rewarding males for living up to sexist-defined notions of male identity. In patriarchal culture, males are not allowed simply to be who they are and to glory in their unique identity. Their value is always determined by what they do. In an anti-patriarchal culture, males do not have to prove their value and worth. They know from birth that simply being gives them value, the right to be cherished and loved."
Oh, okay.
And I love that quote, and I think about it as far as like individualism and like the Allens of the world. They don't want to buy into the patriarchal like definition of a man, which is made clear in the movie when Ken comes back and kind of takes over. Alan's like not down with it and wants to leave Barbie land, but he's not a Barbie either, you know? So I thought that was like really interesting too.
Wow, that's a really good perspective on Alan. Like I kind of wondered why they put Alan in the movie, but actually, yeah, the man. Wow, that makes sense. Very deep. Okay. Individual, yeah, because it sure was. All the Kens kind of mirror one another. I mean, they have a whole choreographic song and dance and everything.
Well, and I thought, and something that's interesting about Alan too is he has like this soft side to him and like hangs out with the Barbies more.
Yep.
And he's like there whenever they put their Constitution back in. But if you remember in the movie, he's the only character that like kicked those guys' ass when they were like trying to leave Barbie. When he was trying to leave Barbie Land with Sasha and her mom, and he's like in the back seat, and like these guys are building this wall to keep people from leaving Barbie Land. He like kicks their butts, you know. I thought that was interesting too because like in like the version of Barbie Land where the Kens are running it, they act really tough, but you don't actually see them like doing tough stuff. Do you get what I mean? Like,
true, yeah.
They're kind of acting like it, but they're not. And I'm not saying I like promote violence. I just thought it was an interesting part of the movie where when it came time to like defending someone's right to leave Barbie Land, Alan is the one to do it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, because even in their like fighting scenes when they're going Ken versus Ken, there's no violence. It's a beach off.
Yeah,
they were doing a beach off, guys.
And then they went into a song and dance. You know, I mean, it was like a dance off. So it was like,
good.
Yeah. So I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, Alan is the only badass. Okay.
Yeah, and he's
cool.
like still this kind of like kind. I'm using the word soft because he's like soft spoken in the movie too.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got that
played by Michael Cera too. I thought that was genius.
Yeah, perfect casting for that.
That's so good. Yeah. Okay, Alan.
Yeah. When I have like, it kind of this leads me into kind of the next point that I have that I wanted to bring up. But this might seem like such a stretch to some people, but I'm definitely making this connection. But I'm thinking of the scene when Ken and Barbie like kiss, and I'm putting kiss in air quotes because they don't actually kiss, because I guess the essence is like if you're playing with dolls and they kiss, they're just dolls, right? Yeah. They're not actually kissing. So they like kiss, quote unquote. And then Ken's like, "That was good." And she's like, "Mm-hmm." And he's like, and he goes, "Can I come inside?" And she says, "For what?" And he goes, "I actually don't know." Right? Like we all know as watchers, like what you would normally do if you go back to someone's house, but he doesn't know because he's a doll.
Of course, yeah.
The connection I'm making is like, so he doesn't even know what sex and love and relationships are because he's a doll. He goes in the real world, he sees it modeled for him by these men in the real world. He comes back and suddenly like everything is sexualized and like the women are being objectified and like all this stuff because that's what's being modeled. I very much think of like teen boys who don't really know what sex looks like. They don't really know what love is, but they can quickly become obsessed with like girls and sex, and they're watching porn and they think that this is what all these things look like and they want it so bad even though like they don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
It's because they're just mirroring what's being modeled for them.
Yes.
You don't even know what that is. You don't even know if you really want it, but you should want it because that's what you're seeing played out. Do you get what I mean? Like, I thought about that.
No, and
that.
I totally see that correlation because Barbie and Ken, just in general as the characters, which makes sense. It's Barbie Land, it's Playland. They had this very much adolescence vibe to them, where Ken sure did seem like he was very much in like of the mind of someone who's not an adult yet. And so no, I could that's great. Yeah, where you just kind of emulate. You just kind of play pretend. I mean, I'm sure you, I don't know if you did that, but did you do that? First off, before I even go down here, guys, we have left some questions unanswered. Did you play with Barbies?
I did play with Barbies.
You did?
I did play with Barbies.
You had the whole, do you know around the...
I don't know if I had like a huge collection, but I know for sure I played with dolls, and like Barbies were a part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Started young too?
Yeah, I would say I was pretty young. Yeah.
Like toddler ages, I think, is when you get like your first doll usually, and go all the way up to...
Yeah, absolutely.
About teenage years, I think, for some... I don't know. I was not a Barbie girl, so this one, I had no idea what to expect out of this movie. I had no idea... let's say I loathed Barbie actually as a little girl because I was a tomboy, I was queer and things like that. So
I can see that.
I was very much like that. I can resonate with Ken a lot because those were the parts and the roles and everything that I was trying to mimic as well.
Well, you probably felt like left out, like Barbie was not a representation of you.
Not at all. Not even close. The closest that it would come, and I sure did have her Barbie, was Sporty Spice. Yeah. If you remember the Spice Girls. She was the closest representation to a doll that I had. But I hated playing with dolls. I hated any of that. I wanted a construction set. I wanted a science, whatever. I wanted a laboratory, things like that. So I had no idea what to I just heard the rave and I was like, okay. And then it didn't even, Barbie the movie didn't interest me in the least because I just thought, okay, well, it's going to be a kid's movie. It's going to be pink. And it's going to be about a doll I never played with. Like, what is there for me? And then when I watched the Barbie movie, I cried, guys. Let's just be honest.
I did too. I cried at America Ferrera's speech.
Oh, of course.
And then I cried at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, as far as going back to just mimicking, that's kind of how I feel like the Barbie Land very much... that was their focus on showing us, like, they mimic what the real world is supposed to be like. And unfortunately, a lot of people fall into the Barbie roles or the Ken roles. And
once he found out patriarchy wasn't about horses, he lost interest.
So good. So it's a lot of work, guys, being in charge. Let's go back to the opening scene. So one thing that I was, again, did not know what to expect whatsoever, had no idea. We walk in, we sit down. First scene that comes on is like this Darwinian, dawn of the time type opening scene.
You know what movie that came from? I think that mimicked Space Odyssey 2001. I'm like pretty sure.
Because I recognize the scene very much so. But
I'm pretty sure that's it.
I couldn't place, because obviously they were doing like some type of parody of whatever scene that was. Which there were so many of I love the Matrix scene too with the Birkenstock versus the high heel.
Yes.
How they went.
You have to pick this one.
Yeah. But I love the opening scene where they bring up how all of the dolls since the dawn of time were babies, and to me that resonated that just hit me so hard, how our entire lives as women, because I don't know if little boys back then got dolls.
I don't think so, and I never thought of it that way. There's always been baby dolls, but then girls have had to play mothers with those dolls. I never once thought of it that way until I saw this movie, and I was like, oh my god, that's so fucking true.
We have been brought up, guys, even in our toys, to just we're the caretakers, we're the mothers, this is the household is what our responsibility is. Which is crazy. And then seeing her come out in her swimsuit of the old vintage one pieces, loved it. It was great. But totally took me by surprise. So I loved good job, Barbie.
My next point that I really think about a lot when it comes to this movie, and I have like another. I have like a couple of quotes to share because I'm stealing from other people's quotes that really resonate with me. But I know that this movie got a reputation for being like anti-men and bashing men in the movie, which is not true at all. If you've seen the movie, I don't think it's like bashing men. I think it's showing a system that has its problems for sure. But
so I haven't heard any of the clapback as far as like I should have done that research. I haven't heard, and I know a lot of like the conservatives and a lot of the people who are
Ben Shapiro, he's got a whole rant about it, and like people who follow him like just kind of like automatically agree with him. And
so, what are the rebuttals? Like, what are they saying?
I mean, honestly, just that it's an anti-men movie, but there's no like substance to that clapback, and so part of me wonders. Have all of y'all seen the movie, or are you just kind of like repeating what someone like Ben Shapiro has to say? And I won't even give Ben Shapiro the time of the day. I think he had like a 45-minute video about it, and I was just like, I'm not listening to a Ben Shapiro rant. So I don't know why like he would have felt that way. But I think, I mean, honestly, like for people who might have been like really offended by the movie, I just think the Barbie movie exposed the emotion that underlies toxic masculinity.
I would say that, yes.
Yeah, it just exposed the emotion, and there's that scene at the end where you get to see Ken like crying and being insecure and being kind of needy, and I don't say those things like they're bad. We all have been insecure and needy and crying and unsure and don't know who we are. We've all like been there.
Oh, of course.
But those are not powerful traits to be exposed.
Those are traits that men are not allowed to show.
Not allowed to share. And so they were shared, and so I don't know if people thought that was like a mocking of men somehow, but I didn't take it that way. I took it as like he's becoming more human, almost like Barbie's becoming more human with feelings, and you know what I mean? Like I just think men should be allowed to show those things too.
Oh yeah, no, and I feel like that's part of the feminism that a lot of men don't really realize is for them, is that you're allowed to be an individual. You're not just the sole provider that's going to make money, that's supposed to procreate, that just never shows any emotions for the rest of your life and keeps everything bottled up. Like that's not like that's one thing that I love about feminism is you are allowed to be you, however that works. Unfortunately, to someone. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Unfortunately, to someone who is more traditional, where they were taught a man is supposed to be this one thing, and these are the things that you should aspire to, which I can kind of understand. Yeah, you should have some level of control over your emotions. Yeah, you should want to succeed, and you should want to provide for yourself. And if you have a family, your family, things like that. So a lot of people who are against feminism think that the feminist agenda is trying to teach men to be weak. It's trying to breed weak men, because men are, if we're not teaching them to be good citizens and to work for a living and to handle their emotions, then what else good thing can we teach them? Which is so extreme from the point. But
I think it just speaks true to you can be strong and vulnerable at the same time. Just like, and what I'm about to say is probably like a whole separate conversation, but I'm talking about like privilege. Like if you hear someone say, oh, male privilege. When people say privilege, a lot of people assume, like if someone tells me I have privilege as a white person, and I take that to mean someone is trying to tell me that I haven't had to work for anything.
Yeah, there you go.
You can be privileged and still work your ass off at the same time.
Right.
Like you could have earned what you have because you worked really hard for it.
Yes.
While also recognizing I've had privilege along the way as a white person, right? So it's kind of the same there, where it's like you can be strong and you can be emotionally vulnerable at the same time. You can do it in a way that is like, you don't want your emotions to be in the driver's seat, and I would say that's true for everybody. When your emotions are in the driver's seat and it feels out of control, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just showing up vulnerable, emotional, like honest about how you feel. And that kind of like brings me to this next quote. So there's a therapist named Terry Real who I've trained with. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, but He's an amazing therapist, by the way. I've done training with him, and he does a lot of couples work and just has a really good grasp on kind of these like systems that we're working with him. And he said in one of his newsletters, and I like screenshotted this and saved it because I was like, oh my gosh, it's so profound. He says that leading men into intimacy, which true intimacy requires emotional vulnerability, like side note. But leading men into intimacy is synonymous with leading them out of patriarchy, disassembling the internalized perceptions of what it means to be a man, and reconnecting men to themselves can be intense, challenging, overwhelming, and at times feel impossible. So I think that's pretty profound that like leading into intimacy means getting out of the patriarchy.
So interesting. I could see that though. I could see, because you have to be very vulnerable, and that's something that you are taught never to, and not even in the men's sphere, just even in the Southern sphere, even with women, we are taught you are never supposed to be vulnerable. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to do anything.
Well, yeah, like don't cry like a girl. We hear that all the time. Yeah. Like it's said to boys, but girls hear it too, which means like if I cry, I'm now a burden, and so when I think of Ken like crying at the end of the movie and being like insecure, I really didn't view that as like this total moment of weakness, because without that, if he had never shown that to Barbie, they would have never had that dialogue where she gets to empower him to say, be who you are, like figure out who you are. So that's really what I took away from that scene.
Hey, I love it. Okay,
those are, and in my work as a couples therapist, those are the moments I'm trying to get my clients to. It's uncomfortable, but the negative emotions are how we have connection. You know, if everything is kind of surface level and positive, we're missing all this depth that we could be like, connecting over. So
let me ask you, apologies for the many tangents. So with Barbie, she obviously had a really good reaction to it. She empowered Ken. She was very supportive and obviously loved Ken for Ken. Do you find it in your work that the females that surround a male kind of enforce that patriarchy of they're not able to grow? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like it's not only done by, obviously the men in their lives, whether it's, the fathers or the uncles, the coaches, a lot of times it can be those systemic issues can be rooted with the mother or the sisters or the girlfriend, fiance, wife.
Absolutely.
Well. Okay.
Absolutely. Like, have you heard of getting the ick? Like when someone has the ick?
Yeah, of course.
This kind of stuff gives women the ick. They see like their partner or a man at all like being emotional. Yes. They're like, I have the ick. And I'm like, why? Let them be. Like, let them be. Let them do that, because like you can do that too.
Well, they never saw their fathers cry.
They never saw their fathers cry. Their moms probably didn't allow it either. And so like, yeah, my gut reaction is like, let them be. But then you have to understand, if it's giving you the ick, there's probably some other reason to unpack there of why that makes you so uncomfortable.
Interesting.
Self-conscious. So yeah, that's definitely there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. So yeah. Let's see. Things from I also didn't realize how old Barbie was. This is a toy that has been around since I think
the 50s. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was not aware of that either. I thought it was a much more like 80s, 90s type toy. Nope.
Yeah. I can't think of a toy now that has been around that long, which is insane. So go Mattel. You've had your problems. That's another thing I also wanted to bring up, the fact that they bring up the fact the whole board of directors of this women's girls toy is all men, right? They had, which I thought Will Ferrell playing the CEO was genius. Didn't expect that either. But I love that they poke the fun to the fact that there's been I think 2 women CEOs of Mattel in its history, which is crazy because Barbie I would assume is one of their biggest producers, which is
well, and Will Ferrell being the CEO, something I found really interesting about that is like he goes on his whole rant about like, oh, I took this job because I'm here to like promote female empowerment. It really brings me to advocacy, and like you can talk, like when I say this is for like when we're talking about men and women, when we're talking about white people versus black people, like anytime you're in a position of privilege, like me, for example, like me as a white person, if I'm advocating, let's say for black people, the only way you should be advocating is by following the people that you're advocating for.
A support role.
A support. Like they're leading, you're listening to them. Black people are telling me what they need, what needs to be changed. I have to listen to them, and I'm going to roll with it, and I'm going to let them lead it. But I'm going to be there to, like, hopefully help change what needs to be changed, right? The worst way to advocate is to, like, take over and make it about your advocacy. Like, look at me doing such a good job. Like, I'm the CEO of Mattel. I'm advocating for women. Like, it's all about me. But he's actually not listening to the women, you know? Like, I thought about that, and I was like, that's so interesting. I thought the movie was very creative in how they implemented that aspect of him being a CEO.
But one thing that I found interesting, and I didn't expect this out of Barbie, was the religious parallels. Like, just hearing the words, the fact that, you know, we had the dawn of time kind of opening, and there was a lot of just creation type parallels that I saw. So the scene where, you know, basically they break the fourth wall, Barbie comes, she sees Ruth Handler is sitting there, Ruth Handler hands her the tea. You have like the God to, I think, David, the Michelangelo painting that you see where like they're handing off the tea. There was that little bit of a side note, and then you also hear when they were creating Barbie was created first and Ken was created after Barbie, which is very alluding to like the Adam and the Eve type.
I don't think I even put that together.
Girl, I thought it was great because in this scenario in Barbie Land, which we could think of Barbie Land almost as like a Garden of Eden in a way, because everything's, you know, they're naive, they're stuck in the bliss land, right? In this portrayal of Barbie being created first, she's Adam. So in this movie, we have Barbie being Adam and Ken being Eve. So I really enjoyed those parallels.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I really did not think of it that way. But now that you're saying it, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, where we have Ruth Handler as God, because she created it and loved it. I thought Barbie, you were the whole directors, writers, you did really good with that. And one other thing that I wanted to bring up, which I absolutely loved, was Weird Barbie. I thought Weird Barbie was one of the best characters.
I know. One of the best characters, and like was there for like. What's so crazy is she gets called Weird Barbie to her face, but she's there for all the Barbies.
Yes,
they can go to her, and she's gonna help them no matter what.
Yes, loved it. Loved it with the short hair and the weird outfit and the writing all over her face, and I felt Weird Barbie all day in my skin. Like, that was so good. I absolutely love that. Yeah. Did you have a Weird Barbie by any chance?
I don't think I did have a Weird Barbie. No, I didn't have any of my Barbies too rough. But, God, what a great character.
She was. Yes. She was. The whole cast. The fact that they had pretty much an all-star cast. Margot Robbie playing Barbie. Ryan Gosling as Ken, which I was so interested to see because everyone knows him from The Notebook.
He killed it. He did so good. And they had like Issa Rae, and they had, just an amazing cast, really.
And his was a chance on him accepting that role. Like, they offered the role to him and everything like that, and he was thinking about it, didn't really want it, and or maybe wanted it. I didn't mean to misspeak right there, but he goes into his daughter's backyard and ends up just seeing a Ken doll face down in the mud that hadn't been played with or anything. So like him seeing this scenario not only was a sign, but he looked at it, he's like, oh, this character is basically forgotten about and it's an afterthought. I would love to bring this life, this role to life. So yeah, he
did such a good job. I bet he's glad he took it now. I mean, the movie is, I think it's over $1 billion.
Oh my God.
I mean, wild.
And it's so crazy that it took them this long to make. So, they hit it. They hit it out of the park.
They did. It was amazing. Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to say about this movie, and again, I'm giving another quote, but there's just so many good quotes out there. I can't help myself. But this one I actually got from TikTok.
Oh.
And the TikTok page is at Black Queer Liberation, and their name is Lars. So shout out to Lars and your page, because I stole this quote from you. But the quote is about biases, and I'm going to it's like about Black people, but I'm going to kind of say the quote and then replace it with like women. Just to, I think it like matters to the movie.
Yeah.
But Lars said that biases Black people have developed against white people as a survival mechanism after hundreds of years of racial oppression is not the same as racism. And so the way I changed it was just like the biases women have developed against men as a survival mechanism after hundreds of years of patriarchal oppression is not the same as sexism.
Agreed. Wow.
Yeah. I thought they put that in such a, it's like so profound and so concise. I could not have said it better myself. And I think that's almost like the essence of the movie is like, you know, when the Barbies have to come back in and unbrainwash themselves and kind of take over control, and the way they did it was by tricking the Kens and like really taking advantage of them a little bit. That's not the same as sexism, because they're doing it as a response to their land being taken over. You get what I mean? So that's what I think of. So that was kind of the last thing I had to share of my thoughts of the movie that I thought really resonated with me.
No, I loved it. That's a really good quote. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Barbie was great. Go see it.
Yes, go check it out and let us know what you think about our feedback about the movie. Like, subscribe to this podcast, leave us a review, tell us what you think about what we're talking about and how this ties into our overall theme. And like we said, this is a bonus episode, and the next episode you'll hear after this one is about the sex positive movement and its impact on us and mental health, and it's going to be a lot of really good stuff. So we're excited to keep sharing with you guys.
Accurate, guys. Yeah, if you want to leave us a comment, I would really, really like to know if A, you played with Barbie. So let me know in the comments if you played with the Barbies, because not all of us did. And B, if you can just comment down below. Also, did Barbie, just the brand of Barbie, did it? Do you think it represented you? Because I'm really curious, because I do know Barbie for the longest time was very controversial on what the type of woman that she represented, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, has that changed since watching the Barbie movie and now knowing what she stands for? Right. All right.
Great questions. I'd love to hear what everyone says.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'll enjoy your day.
And just, again, we're Sex Positivity Unfiltered. And remember to stay curious and fuck politeness.